The attic smelled of dust and forgotten memories. Emma's hands trembled as she lifted a faded box, her heart pounding with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Inside lay a porcelain doll, its eyes unnervingly lifelike, staring straight at her. A chill ran down her spine. She whispered, "Where did you come from?" The moment she touched it, a sudden crash echoed behind her, making her whip around. Shadows danced along the rafters as if alive. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet fascination rooted her in place. The doll seemed almost to breathe, its expression shifting. Emma felt a connection she couldn't explain. Later that night, Emma sat in her dimly lit living room, the doll on the table before her. Her phone vibrated with a voicemail. She hesitated, then pressed play. A trembling voice whispered, "They know where you are," and cut to static. Fear clawed at her chest, and her gaze flicked to the doll, which now seemed impossibly alive. The room felt smaller, the shadows longer. Every creak of the floorboard echoed like a warning. She whispered to herself, "What do you want from me?" But no answer came. Only the oppressive silence of a house that suddenly felt alien. The following morning, strange occurrences began in earnest. Objects shifted positions when she wasn't looking. Her coffee mug was never where she left it. The doll appeared in different places each time she glanced away. Emma's nerves frayed. She muttered, "This isn't real. It can't be real." But the sense of being watched persisted. Even the sun seemed dimmer, filtering weakly through the blinds. The attic, the voicemail, the doll, all pieces of a puzzle she didn't yet understand, yet couldn't ignore. Emma tried to reach out to her friends, but calls went unanswered. Even her neighbors seemed distant, oddly tense. Alone, she stared at the doll, whose eyes seemed to bore into her soul. Her pulse quickened. Each creak of the house felt amplified. She whispered a shaky "Please, tell me what's happening," but the silence was deafening. Panic rose. The doll had become the anchor of her fear, a symbol of the secrets now forcing themselves into her life. She realized this was no ordinary object. It carried a story, and it demanded to be heard. That evening, Emma returned to the attic, drawn by a compulsion she couldn't resist. Dust swirled as she moved boxes, uncovering old letters tied with ribbon. They spoke of tragedies, forgotten names, and warnings never heeded. A chill ran through her, and she shivered, clutching the doll for comfort. Its gaze seemed to pierce her mind. A sudden gust of wind slammed the attic door, and she realized the past wasn't buried. It was alive, demanding acknowledgement. Her journey had begun, and there was no turning back. The next morning, Emma awoke to find the doll sitting on her kitchen counter, though she was certain it had been on the table in the living room. Her pulse raced. Every corner of the house seemed to breathe with unseen life. She whispered, "This can't be real," but the doll's unblinking stare challenged her denial. Small objects, utensils, books, even a vase, had shifted. Panic mingled with fascination. Emma realized the doll's presence was no accident. It followed her, observing, waiting. The ordinary world had become unpredictable, and her sense of safety had dissolved entirely. Determined to understand, Emma began documenting the doll's movements with her phone camera. Every clip showed subtle changes, a tilt of the head, a shift in its expression, or its placement slightly closer to her. The once comforting light of her home now cast elongated shadows, turning familiar spaces into corridors of unease. The line between reality and fear blurred. She muttered to herself, "Why is this happening? What do you want from me?" The room seemed to pulse with quiet energy, as if the house itself was alive, and the doll its silent emissary. By afternoon, the doll's influence extended beyond objects. Emma felt the creeping sensation of being watched, even in her solitude. Her reflection in a hallway mirror made her flinch. She thought she saw the doll behind her, but when she spun, it remained in the same spot. Unease tightened its grip. Her phone buzzed unexpectedly. A message appeared from an unknown number. "It's not safe. Leave it." Fear and confusion collided. The house was no longer hers alone. She realized someone, or something, knew more about the doll's past than she did, and it wasn't just her imagination she was confronting. Later that evening, a knock at the door startled her. A tall, enigmatic man stood there, shadowed by the dim porch light. He introduced himself as Lucas, late 30s, offering cryptic advice. The doll isn't just a toy. It carries memories you shouldn't ignore. Emma's skepticism warred with her rising fear. Something about him was unsettling yet compelling. She felt drawn to his knowledge, though she couldn't tell if it was trust or manipulation. Every instinct screamed caution. Yet, desperate for answers, she invited him inside, unaware that this choice would deepen the enigma surrounding the doll. Inside, Lucas led Emma to the living room, where the doll sat innocently on the coffee table. He spoke of past tragedies, whispered family secrets, and dangers tied to the porcelain figure. Emma's mind raced as she absorbed fragments of a story she couldn't yet piece together. The doll's eyes seemed sharper now, observing every reaction, almost approving or warning. Shadows flickered against the walls, stirred by an unseen breeze. Emma shivered, realizing her life had been irrevocably altered. The ordinary was gone. The doll, Lucas, and the house had merged into a puzzle she had no choice but to solve. Determined to uncover the doll's history, Emma spent the morning sifting through old family records and letters. Each fragment hinted at tragedy. A child lost, a house abandoned, and whispered warnings she could barely decipher. Lucas stood nearby, observing, offering cryptic guidance without revealing everything. Emma's fingers trembled as she traced faded ink on yellowed pages, realizing the doll's past was entwined with her own family lineage. The room felt suffocating, the walls pressing closer. Every revelation deepened the mystery, making her heart pound with both dread and the thrill of discovery. Emma discovered a photograph tucked inside a letter. It showed a young girl clutching a porcelain doll almost identical to the one in her attic. Her chest tightened, the resemblance was uncanny. Lucas leaned in, voice low. She disappeared mysteriously decades ago, and the doll was all that remained. Emma's mind raced. Could the tragedies of the past be reaching into her present? The realization that the doll might be more than an object sent shivers down her spine. The shadows in the room seemed to lengthen, as if acknowledging her growing understanding. Emma's curiosity drove her to the local library archives. Dusty tomes and microfilm revealed newspaper clippings about a series of unexplained disappearances in her town, all connected to a doll passed down through generations. She whispered to herself, "It's always been here, hiding the truth." Lucas watched from behind, his face unreadable. The room smelled of old paper and mildew. Each discovery added urgency to her quest. The doll was no ordinary toy. It was a vessel of history, a keeper of secrets, and Emma knew she had to confront its past before it consumed her present entirely. Returning home, Emma attempted to piece the clues together. Newspaper articles, letters, photographs. They all pointed to a hidden tragedy, a child's disappearance blamed on a caretaker, yet rumors hinted at something far more sinister. Lucas cautioned, the doll doesn't just witness events, it holds them. Emma's skin prickled as she stared at the doll. Could it really remember? Could it communicate? Shadows in the corners seemed to twitch as though alive. The tension between fear and obsession consumed her, leaving no room for doubt. The past had a way of reaching forward, and Emma was now caught in its grip. As night fell, Emma awoke to the sound of soft crying echoing through the house. She froze, heart hammering. The doll sat upright on her bedside table, its eyes glistening as if filled with tears. Lucas appeared at the doorway, voice low. "This is her message. Listen carefully." The reality of the doll's power struck Emma with chilling clarity. The past was alive, insistent, and desperate to be understood. Her life and the doll's history were intertwined in a way that defied logic. There was no turning back. The secrets demanded confrontation, and Emma knew the journey into darkness had only begun. The following night, Emma awoke to the faint sound of footsteps echoing through the hall. Her pulse quickened. The doll sat at the edge of her bed, its porcelain face eerily calm. Lucas entered quietly, whispering, "It senses fear. Don't let it control you." Emma's hands trembled as she reached for the doll, but it shifted slightly, as though resisting. Every instinct screamed escape, yet curiosity anchored her in place. The house seemed to close in, shadows curling and stretching unnaturally. Fear and fascination collided as she realized she was no longer merely an observer. The doll had drawn her fully into its dark story. Emma and Lucas decided to explore the attic where the doll was originally found. Dust hung in the air, motes glinting in the weak afternoon sunlight. Wooden floorboards groaned underfoot, echoing like distant warnings. Boxes and old trunks lined the walls, filled with forgotten memories. Lucas muttered, "The answers are here, but so are the traps." Emma's heart pounded as she lifted a box lid, revealing old toys and letters, some stained with age. The air felt thick with anticipation, as if the attic itself was watching, waiting for the moment they would uncover the truth. Inside a trunk, Emma found a small diary bound in cracked leather. Flipping through the pages, she discovered the writings of a child who had vanished decades ago. The entries spoke of loneliness, whispers in the dark, and a doll that seemed alive. Each word made her shiver. Lucas leaned closer, voice quiet but steady. "This doll holds memories, maybe even part of her soul." Emma's mind reeled. Could the doll truly harbor the essence of a child? Fear clashed with her desperate need to understand. She felt both drawn and repelled, trapped between compassion and terror. Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut behind them. Emma gasped, heart racing. Shadows elongated across the room unnaturally, and a cold breeze stirred the dust. The doll, once in Lucas's arms, now sat upright on a trunk, head tilted as if watching. "It's reacting," Lucas murmured. Panic threatened to overtake rational thought. Objects in the room seemed to vibrate with silent energy. Emma clenched the diary to her chest, understanding that the doll's influence was growing stronger, almost sentient. Their search for truth was no longer safe. It had become a test of courage and survival. Emma and Lucas noticed strange symbols etched into the floorboards beneath the doll. Their shapes pulsed faintly in the dim light, as if alive. Lucas whispered, "This is older than any of us. These markings bind the doll to the house, to history." Emma knelt, tracing the carvings with trembling fingers, feeling a cold energy radiate upward. The attic seemed to exhale around them, full of secrets long buried. She realized that uncovering the past was not just about discovery. It was a dangerous confrontation with forces beyond her comprehension. Every heartbeat amplified the doll's silent dominion over the room. Emma spent the early hours of the morning cross-referencing old letters with the diary she found in the attic. A chilling pattern emerged. The child's disappearance was linked to her own family lineage, something long buried and deliberately erased from memory. Lucas observed silently, eyes narrowing. Some truths are meant to resurface only when ready. Emma's heart raced. Fear and dread merged as she realized the doll was not merely a relic. It was a guardian, a witness, and perhaps a judge. Every unanswered question now seemed to demand resolution, and the past's shadow felt inescapable. Emma's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number flashed. "The truth will cost you more than you know." Panic gripped her, but curiosity propelled her forward. She looked at the doll. It sat perfectly still, its lifelike eyes reflecting an uncanny intelligence. Lucas whispered, "The warnings are not idle. The doll carries more than memories. It carries intention." Emma's rational mind wavered against creeping superstition. Every creak of the floor, every flicker of light, heightened the sense that the house, the doll, and her ancestors were conspiring to force her to confront what had long been hidden. Determined, Emma returned to the attic alone. Dust hung in the air as she approached the trunk. Trembling, she opened it again, finding more personal items: a child's toy chest, tattered clothes, and a faded portrait showing the vanished girl smiling with a doll identical to hers. A shiver ran down her spine. Lucas' words echoed in her mind. "It isn't the doll that haunts the past. It is the past haunting us." The attic felt alive, thick with memories and silent warnings. Emma realized she had crossed a threshold. The doll was no longer a puzzle. It was the keeper of her family's darkest secrets. Emma clutched the portrait and felt a chill surge through her body. The doll's eyes seemed to glimmer with awareness. She whispered, "You've been waiting all this time." Suddenly, a gust of wind blew through the attic, scattering letters and stirring dust into a chaotic dance. Emma realized the house was responding to her acknowledgement of the truth. Lucas had warned her, but witnessing it firsthand was different. The doll's presence had escalated from passive to almost sentient. Every instinct screamed to leave, yet she was compelled to continue, knowing the first major revelation of the doll's history was imminent. The first major reveal hit like a lightning strike. Hidden beneath the floorboards was a small compartment containing a bundle of letters and a locket. Emma recognized her grandmother's handwriting and the name of the child who had vanished decades ago. The doll had belonged to that child, her own distant cousin. Lucas' voice was low, almost reverent. "The doll carries what the world tried to bury, and it has chosen you to uncover it." Emma's breath caught. The intertwining of her family history with the doll's story was undeniable. She understood now. The past would not remain silent, and the secrets demanded reckoning. As night fell, Emma felt the house pulse with a sinister rhythm. Shadows seemed to creep along the walls, twisting unnaturally. The doll sat on the floor, facing her, its head tilting with every sound she made. Lucas whispered urgently, "It knows we're close. Be ready." A cold draft swept the room, carrying whispers she couldn't decipher. Emma's heartbeat thundered as fear and determination collided. Every instinct screamed retreat, yet she moved closer, drawn by the weight of revelation. The doll's eyes glimmered, alive with a force she could neither name nor resist. Emma noticed an old music box tucked behind a trunk. She wound it, and a haunting melody filled the attic, vibrating through the air. The doll's movement synchronized with the music, tilting and shifting as if dancing to an unseen rhythm. Lucas said quietly, "It responds to sound, to presence. It manipulates perception." Emma's vision blurred. The attic seemed larger, darker, alive. Fear gnawed at her resolve, but she gritted her teeth, knowing the truth lay beyond this test. The melody and the doll's eerie response pushed her closer to confronting the full weight of the past. Suddenly, the attic lights flickered violently. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, creating monstrous shapes on the walls. Emma froze, clutching the music box, while the doll moved toward her, step by step, silent but menacing. Lucas whispered, "It tests us now. Courage will define who survives this encounter." Emma's mind raced. Every rational thought collided with the undeniable presence of something beyond comprehension. Fear, determination, and defiance merged, forcing her to confront not only the doll's power, but also the buried traumas linking her family to this object of obsession. Emma realized she had to face the doll directly. Kneeling on the floor, she spoke softly. "I see you. I understand now." The doll froze mid-step, its glassy eyes reflecting her determination. The attic seemed to exhale, the oppressive weight momentarily lifting. Lucas' voice was steady. "Acknowledgement grants you power. Fear feeds it. Understanding weakens it." Emma felt a surge of courage and clarity. The house, the shadows, and the doll's subtle movements now seemed less like threats and more like a warning. She was no longer a passive observer. She was a participant in a story decades in the making. A final revelation struck. Beneath the attic floorboards, Emma uncovered a hidden journal detailing the child's final days, her fear, isolation, and attachment to the doll. The doll's eyes seemed to glisten, as if acknowledging Emma's discovery. Lucas said softly, "The past is complete in your understanding. You've earned the truth, but it carries weight." Emma felt both relief and sorrow, knowing she had bridged decades of silence. The attic remained still, the doll quiet, yet its presence promised that the story was not yet fully over. Darkness and light balanced in the room, mirroring the fragile peace now achieved. The attic was silent except for Emma's shallow breaths. The doll sat upright on the trunk, eyes glinting unnaturally in the dim light. Lucas whispered, "This is it. The truth waits for no one." Emma felt a surge of resolve. Every memory, every discovery led to this moment. She reached out and touched the doll's hand. A cold shock ran through her, but clarity followed. The past and present collided. She finally understood the child's fear, the family's secrets, and the doll's role as a silent guardian. The room seemed to hold its breath, as if acknowledging her courage and acceptance of what must be faced next. Suddenly, the attic walls seemed to pulse. The doll slowly turned its head toward Emma, as if acknowledging her understanding. The hidden journal she discovered glowed faintly, revealing names, dates, and confessions that clarified decades of mystery. Lucas's voice trembled slightly. "The final pieces are here. The story has demanded your presence, and you have answered." Emma absorbed every detail, connecting dots that had long eluded her. Each revelation was heavier than the last, and the weight of her family's buried past pressed against her chest, making it hard to breathe, yet she faced it without faltering. A gust of wind burst through the attic, scattering loose papers into the air like a flurry of ghosts. Emma caught fragments of old letters mid-flight, realizing that the child's final days had been filled with loneliness, neglect, and fear. The doll's eyes seemed to glimmer knowingly, guiding her to understand the human pain behind the porcelain mask. Lucas murmured, "It shows not just the past, but the lessons it demands you carry forward." Emma felt both grief and resolve. The doll's purpose was no longer a mystery. It was a bridge between the living and the forgotten, demanding remembrance and acknowledgement. Emma placed the journal and letters back in the trunk, her hands trembling but steady. The doll sat motionless, as if satisfied. Lucas finally spoke. "The past is honored when acknowledged. The doll has fulfilled its role." A quiet calm settled over the attic. Emma felt a strange serenity, knowing she had confronted not only the supernatural presence, but also her family's long-hidden truths. The doll's lifelike gaze softened, and for the first time, it seemed merely watchful rather than ominous. The oppressive weight lifted, replaced by a fragile peace, though Emma knew the story's echoes would linger forever. As Emma descended the attic stairs, the first rays of dawn broke through the windows. She glanced back. The doll's eyes caught hers one final time, glinting with a silent warning and a quiet farewell. Lucas whispered, "Some secrets never truly rest, and some guardians never leave." Emma exhaled deeply, stepping into the morning light, carrying both the knowledge and the burden of what she had uncovered. The doll remained, silent and watchful, ensuring the past would not be forgotten. Outside, the world appeared ordinary, yet Emma knew she had glimpsed something extraordinary, haunting, and eternal.